Hi, and welcome to Messe Films Production. I am Alex Messe. I'll be your host for tonight. I have here a wonderful actor that has so much experience, and I really feel you will get something out of hearing his experience. His name is Steve Izant, and I welcome you to the show tonight.
Alex, thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. All right, Steve, let's get started with you because it's such an interesting story. You had retired from your regular job, and you decided to become an actor. Tell me first about your normal life before becoming an actor.
Well, I had an unusual job in that I was with the same company for 35 years. It was my first job out of school, and 35 years later I retired. Now, I didn't have the same job for all 35 years, of course, but I did new business development for a company that operates restaurants and gift shops and bars and airports throughout the United States and the world. And I did contract negotiation, but at the end of 35 years, I said to myself, it's time to do something different. And so I had the luxury, a lot of people don't these days, but I had the luxury of being able to retire when I was 58, and that was 6 years ago.
Okay, so you really just decided to do something fun and you went the right way. Tell us, okay, so you retire. What made you want to be an actor? What clicked?
Well, you might, in a way, have to talk about the interim period first, because I've only been doing acting for the last 2 years, and I was actually, I've been retired for 6 years now. So for those first few years, I did, in a way, kind of thrash around a little bit, for lack of a better term, of what to do with myself and my time. And I did start out by doing volunteer work. I do consider myself so fortunate in my life that I now have the luxury of being able to give back to people and to society. So there are some wonderful websites that will allow you to pursue different kinds of volunteer work. And I still do some now. I read for the Air and Space Museum, Smithsonian Magazine. I read some articles for the visually handicapped. Every Monday morning, I'm at 6 o'clock in the morning in a little studio in Silver Springs, Maryland, along with some other volunteers, reading the Washington Post into a computer for the visually handicapped. I did some work on the Taney, which is the Coast Guard cutter in downtown Baltimore in the Inner Harbor. That was the last ship afloat in Pearl Harbor during the attack.
Wow, okay.
So I did that, but that didn't take up all of my time. And to now answer your question directly, I was reading the Wall Street Journal. This is about 2 years ago. And this article about a guy who had retired caught my eye. And so I read that article, and there was actually just one little sentence in there that said that he was doing some work as an extra. And it gave the name of a website. And I thought, well, why don't I try that? I mean, I could be an extra. That sounded like fun. And so I joined that website, and we talked a little bit about what happened when I did that. But that's how I got into it. I read an article about a guy who had retired, and I was still really trying to sort of find myself. And of course, my wife was saying, will you please find yourself? Because I wasn't home for 35 years, and now all of a sudden I'm home on a daily basis. So it's a typical retirement problem that people have.
For the wives also.
It is. Well, one day I'm a senior executive on Friday, tens of millions of dollars in contract negotiation, affecting the lives of hundreds of people if I get or don't get the contract. And Monday morning, I'm looking around for things to do. Well, I organized my wife's spice rack. I put the CDs in alphabetical order. And after that, then what do you do?
That's right. But let me stop you right there, because Steve just said that he has been acting only for 2 years. But his resume is outstanding. I'm sorry, it really is. He's a true professional actor. So speaking of your wife, now that we said clear, you have a outstanding resume, what did she thought when you said, I am going to be an actor? Was she okay with that? I mean,
well, she was at that point happy with anything that would get me out of the house.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, she had worked full-time for a women's specialty dress chain, and she had retired from that. And as a way to sort of get away from me, she went back to work for them part-time.
Okay.
So she's been very supportive. I mean, since that time, of course, whenever you audition, for example, after this, I'm going to go audition over in Tyson's Corner for a play. It's my audition time's at 8:40. I'll get back home probably around 9:30 or 10. I'm currently taking several classes at the Studio Theater in downtown Washington, D.C., and I don't get home until sometimes 10:30 or 11. But she's been incredibly supportive, and I have to thank her for that. But she also sees that I'm having a good time.
And you're happy.
And I'm happy.
So that's good because
it is good.
The career in the industry is tough at some point. So
well, I'm fortunate in that I can pursue whatever I want. I've been in some small movies that your viewers have never heard of that they'll probably never see.
Okay.
I've been in some commercials that they might have seen, some industrials as they're called. I do a little bit of voiceover work. I've been in 4 different plays. If I can put in a little plug for you, you've been gracious enough to give me a supporting part in your upcoming film that's going to film this fall.
yes.
So I'm having a great time, but I have the luxury that a lot of people don't that pursue acting in that I don't actually have to earn a living at it.
Exactly. That's true.
And so far right now, I've reported my expenses and income to the IRS for the last 2 years, and they're running about even, so at least I'm not losing too much money doing this.
That's true. That's good. Now, going into the industry at your age, you're retired, is it hard? Harder, I guess you could say? Or not really?
I'm not sure. Most people will tell you that there's a role for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter whether you're 2 years old or you're 99 years old, there's a role for you out there. And if your viewers just take a look at some commercials and start paying attention to them, they'll see people of all ages. So I think actually it may be easier only from the perspective that, as a matter of fact, one casting director one time said to me, people that want to act that are 20 and 30 years old are a dime a dozen. It's hard to find good actors that are your age.
That's very true.
So from that perspective, yes, there is still a lot of competition, but there's a lot of parts out there too.
And as a casting director, I agree. It is hard to find a good actor at your age.
Well, it is.
I was lucky enough to find
it. It is, and again, I have the luxury of being able to pursue this full time. An early acting instructor that I had, I think, gave me some good advice and something that I'd leave with your viewers if they're interested in acting, and that is, it's a business. No. As much fun as you may have, as much enjoyment as you may get out of it, it's a business. And if you don't pursue your craft every day, whether it's looking for auditions, whether it's doing some kind of training for your voice, whether it's doing some exercises, whether it's doing the actual acting, whether it's doing classes to sharpen your skills, you need to be doing something every single day because it's a business.
It is a very, that's true. Very well said. It is a business. That might surprise people. Like, as it's seriously, it's a lot of demand. I mean, it's a business in the industry that deserves the respect that as any other career really does. Now, how do you prepare yourself? You said, I want to be an actor. So what do you do to pursue it? Headshots or what do you do?
Well, I don't have my very first resume with me, but I've saved it just so I can go back and have a chuckle. And when I first started, of course, I didn't have a headshot, and I knew I needed a headshot, but I didn't really want to invest the money just in case I decided I didn't like acting.
Okay.
So
they are very expensive. Yeah.
They are very expensive. Some of your viewers may know they can range from anywhere from, say, a couple of $100 up to $1,000. Mm-hmm. My most recent set of headshots that I'm very happy with, I went to New York for them, and I paid about $700 for them. That's just for the shots. That's not, of course, the reprinting. If you get like 50 or 100 of them, that's a totally separate expense. But to start off with, I didn't know if I wanted to spend the money. So probably your viewers are computer literate. We've got a Mac, we've got iPhoto. I went to my photos and I found a picture of me that I thought could kind of look, if you kind of squinted, it kind of would look like a headshot.
Okay.
So I went in and I cropped that to make it look more like a headshot. And then, of course, you have to come up with a resume. And it was a pretty meager resume because I had no credits when I first started. I mean, some of your viewers are thinking, well, how's anybody going to hire me if I don't have any credits? And we'll discuss that in a second. But so what I came up with, I got my Word document. I imported my headshot picture onto the resume. Rather than having it on the back, which is the way you're supposed to do it, to take up space, I put my picture in the upper right-hand corner. And then my name and my statistics. And then you have things called special abilities. And special abilities are nothing more than things that you do that a casting director might like. Riding a bicycle, swimming, ballroom dancing, driving a boat. Anything that you can do, you list as special abilities. Mm-hmm. So that was my first resume with no credits.
Okay.
And it still had an awful lot of white space. So to further eat up the white space, I went through my photos again. I found 4 more that I could kind of crop, and I wanted some that maybe looked like an action photo perhaps. And I found 4 and imported those, and I put those all across the bottom of the resume just to
Fill
eat
it
up
up.
the space, just to fill it up.
Okay.
So that was my first resume.
What do you like about auditioning? Or what do you hate? Both things there.
Well, it is perhaps a love-hate relationship, because what happens is you never know why they pick you or why they don't pick you.
That's true.
And sometimes they themselves, the directors, don't even know what they're looking for until they see it. They may think they want a person like this, but then all of a sudden they go, well, that wasn't what I was looking for, but I think that's really pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't let it get to you like, oh my God, I auditioned and I didn't get it. On the other hand, you can't get too full of yourself and saying, oh boy, I got that one because I'm so wonderful. You really just don't know. But the fun of it is to go in there, and it's a challenge. They may give you what's called a side, is a little short piece of a script. They may give you that 2 minutes before they want you to audition. Or they may send it to you in an email. But a lot of times you only get it a few minutes before.
Yes.
And you have to decide then, what's the character like? And then you start to get into some of the acting fundamentals. What's the situation that this person's in? Why are they saying this? What happened a couple of minutes before? You have to think about all those things in a couple of minutes. So the thing I think that your viewers should remember when they audition is they shouldn't be nervous, because casting directors actually want you to succeed.
Yes.
They don't want to go through the entire day and not find someone. They're there to find somebody.
They're there to find you. That's
Exactly,
right.
exactly. And so you just say to yourself, they're there to find me. I just have to make sure they know it's me as opposed to those other guys.
That's right. And when you first got your first call saying, hey, you got the part, how was that like?
It was wonderful, because it was my very first thing actually was a paying gig. It was, though, as an extra. It was a 30-second commercial for the Chesapeake Resort and Spa down in Chesapeake Beach. And this commercial shows happy people checking in and happy people in a conference and happy people in a restaurant. Well, I was one of the people in the restaurant, I and this woman that I met. So we sat there, we got to have real food. It took about 2 hours to shoot our little restaurant scene, and we had to pretend to eat the food. And finally, at the end of the 2 hours, we actually got to eat it. I mean, it was real food.
Oh, okay.
It was a little cold
nice
by
and
then.
cold, I was going to say.
But it was still pretty good. They have pretty good food there. And so I was so excited, because I was going to be on local TV, NBC, ABC, CBS in the Washington area for a 30-second commercial. I finally saw it. I mean, some people called me and said, hey, I saw you. I finally saw it. I was on for about half a second.
Half a
second.
For 2 hours of film.
For 2 hours of filming. But I got paid. There was a voiceover. There was a woman's voice describing everything while these scenes flashed in the background. So that was my very first gig, as they call it, and I actually got paid for it, which
Just got you what you like, the acting.
It did.
Now, before we go, tell us about your projects and what are you doing right now?
Well, I mentioned earlier, I'm taking a couple of classes down at Studio Theater. I'm taking a thing called Principles of Realism. I'm taking the thing called Voice One, and it's not for voiceovers, but rather it's actually how to use your voice, how to really speak from within, and how to project and so on. I've mentioned this audition that I'm going to for a play up in Tyson's Corner. I did just get cast for an industrial that I thought I had done a good job, but they didn't call. The next day I had an audition. I thought I did crappy. They called and said, hey, you've got it. That was on a Friday. By Tuesday or Wednesday the following week, they said, no, you know what? We changed our minds. You don't have it. And then 2 weeks later, the first people called and said, hey, you've got that. So it's something.
And you're working for Money LF, right?
And I was just going to put in another plug that I'm Nicholas Blackwood. I'm filthy rich. I'm incredibly intelligent. And I should mention handsome, of course. And of course, I have a son that is that way as well. And he has all sorts of challenges with the woman that he thinks is the love of his life. So.
And maybe she is, right? We just don't know yet.
We just don't know. People are going to have to see the movie.
That's
and you're going to
right.
start filming this month. And when do you think you'll wrap up production?
About next year for summer I'll be ready to show. But I would like to thank you for coming. It was such a pleasure to talk to you and hear you. And I hope you got wonderful information, How you, at no age, doesn't matter. You follow your dreams and do what you like. Have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.